voz de la guitarra mía. Al despertar la mañana, quiero cantar su alegría a mi tierra mexicana. A nation born into its own millennium of an American civilization. We invite you to experience a wonderful opportunity to hear a historical narrative through the music of two incredibly talented musicians. The sentiments of our past will present themselves through the beauty of music. We will hear through our senses and see through the eye of our minds an intricate weaving of music interlaced into a tapestry of time. We will listen to the harmonic compositions as performed by our esteemed Cristina Berryessa Bonner herself, a descendant of California's original Berryessa family of the late 1700s, and our classic guitarist and Renaissance man, Carlos de la Fuente. Together, as escorts through time, we will travel with our performers and journey through the presence of four overarching time periods of Mexican and Mexican-American history. The Native Mexican period, the colonial period, the Mexican Revolution of 1910, and the California period between the 1770s and 1930s. Their gift for you this evening, is a unique reflection of history to the wonder of music. Through music, an indigenous Spanish, Mexican, and Mexican-American experience will present itself as diverse as the many cultures of Las Americas. And now, I have the honor to present our very special guest. Please join me as I welcome Cristina Berryessa Bonner and Carlos de la Fuente. We begin our performance with the Native Mexican period, the time before the arrival of Hernán Cortés and Christopher Columbus. Our first piece describes a story that has endured for hundreds of years, a story of love, betrayal, a loss of honor, death, and a soul tormented for all eternity. Aztec mothers and grandmothers would share this story with their young, a time-tested method to teach and to impress upon the values of la familia. Traditionally, sons and daughters were taught that bad children roamed around in the dark after sunset, and that good children remained within the comfort and security of home. In recent years, our story challenges our understanding of relationships between men and women. For others, the story of La Llorona.
no hacen ruido y es más grande su pena. Hay muertos que no hacen ruido y es más grande su pena. We'd like to play for you Canción Mixteca. The Mixtecos are from the valley of Oaxaca in southern Mexico. Most of them, or many of them, are farmers. They have been living in that same valley for over 1,000 years. But in recent times, many of the men have begun leaving their homes and coming to the U.S. to look for work so that they can help support their families. It's a difficult thing. Most of these men will not be seeing their families again for many years. This song is about them. It was originally written in the Mixteco language. The words say, "I am so far away from the land where I was born. A deep feeling of sorrow fills my soul. And when I feel sad and lonely, like a leaf in the wind, I cry, and I dream of my home in the land of the sunshine." Estoy del suelo donde nací, inmensa nostalgia invade mi pensamiento, y al verme tan solo y triste cual hoja al viento, quisiera morir de sentimiento. Oh tierra del sol, suspiro por verte, ahora que lejos yo vivo sin luz, sin amor. Y al verme tan solo y triste cual hoja al viento, quisiera llorar, quisiera morir de sentimiento. tan sol muy triste, cual hoja al viento. Quisiera llorar, quisiera morir de sentimiento.
We now enter the colonial period of Mexico. New Spain, Nueva España, como una semilla, a seed, the beginning of la raza cósmica. A syncretism, a blending of two worlds, two cultures, languages, and religions, two civilizations. La Virgen de Tepeyac, la Virgen de Guadalupe, an eventual spirituality of one. Un mestizaje, el mestizo, el mexicano. Over a period of 300 years, a fusion of music, history, philosophy, and cultures of continents melded into one.
The story of love carried on the wings of a dove goes back thousands of years. This next piece, La Paloma, was written around 1863 by a Spanish Basque composer by the name of Sebastián Iradier. It quickly became popular in Mexico, a favorite of the Emperor Maximilian, and at the same time, Mexican revolutionaries played it. The song is played all over the world. One might hear it at a wedding in Zanzibar, a funeral in Romania, in Germany as a sailor's lament, and in Mexico as a protest song. It's the most recorded song in history, over 5,000 times, 5,001 since I've just recorded it. So we'd like to play this universal love song, which over a century has been circling the globe like a dove, La Paloma. We're really slick tonight, aren't we?
That's why I like being up here.
We're just having fun.
La Barca de Oro is one of the most traditional songs in Mexico. Everybody knows La Barca de Oro. My grandmother used to tell me that her grandmother used to play it on the harp, and that would have been around the year 1800. It's been around for a long time. It's a sad goodbye song between two people who will never again see each other. The words to the song say, "Never again will my eyes look into your eyes. Never again will your ear hear my song. Goodbye forever, goodbye." And this is a song that seems to inspire people. You know, we've played it in concert, and I always hear people singing it. So if it touches you right here, join us. It would be very nice to hear you. La Barca de Oro.
De oro que debe conducirme, yo ya me voy. Solo vengo a despedirme. Adiós, mujer, adiós para siempre, adiós. Volverán mis ojos a mirarte, mis oídos escucharán mi canto. Yo ya me voy, solo vengo a
This song that we're going to play is a composition by a very well-known Mexican composer of the late 1800s, early 1900s. His name was, or they called him, Tata Nacho. He wrote some really beautiful music, gentle music. Much of his music was about the simple life in the country, life in the Hacienda. We'd like to play for you Borrachita.
Check on my tuning.
This next piece is about the prisoner of San Juan de Ulua. San Juan de Ulua was a fortress built on a rocky island at the entrance to the harbor in Veracruz. The Spanish placed it there so that they could defend the port from the English pirates. But the place had another purpose. It was a prison. It was a brutal prison. And in this piece, we have a man who had been a fisherman, now singing from behind the bars of the prison at San Juan de Ulua. Preso me encuentro tras de la reja de mi prisión. Cantar quisiera, llorar no puedo, los tristes ayes de mi dolor. Una mañana yo fui a jurado y en el banquillo se me sentó el veredicto deliberado, como culpable me sentenció.
Yo no le temo a la falúa, yo no le temo al ancho mar, solo le temo a San Juan de Ulúa, donde mi vida va a terminar. Un día domingo a Martolina, un pajarillo me fue a cantar. Era mi madre en forma de ave, a su hijo amado iba a consolar. Cuando yo muera y entre los mares vayan mis restos a sepultar, una plegaria al presidiario que fue asesino por tanto.
Carlos Fuentes, famed Mexican author, once said, Mexico is a portrait of the cycles of creation, a portrait of the skies, and a succession of suns and elements that give no quarter. The portrait of Mexicans is a portrait of creation. It is for that reason that Mexicans accept whatever life offers and that they do not deny any reality. Nevermore was this tested than during the Mexican Revolution of 1910, an internal struggle between the ideals of modernization, Mexico's loss of memory of its indigenous past, and land reform. Up to 3.5 million people died, nearly 1 million became refugees and traveled north al norte to the United States. And above all, its people, los Mexicanos, endured. They survived. They lived on. And if we listen carefully to the next few pieces, we will hear their stories of love, we will hear their stories of life, and we will hear their stories of sacrifice and death.
The revolution brought big changes to Mexico. Changes in the social structure, changes in the distribution of land. No longer would a few privileged families own most of the land across the country. The slogan of Emiliano Zapata was Tierra y Libertad, land and freedom. But the revolution also brought big changes to music. With the revolution came the corridos, or the ballads of the revolution, that sang of brave deeds and brave people, including women. It was not unusual to see women in the middle of the battle, wearing their double bandoliers across their chest and carrying a 30-30 rifle, fighting right alongside the men. These women were called soldaderas, or women soldiers. The most famous of them was Adela Velarde from Ciudad Juarez. She was valiant. I'd like to play for you El Corrido de la Adelita.
La cucaracha ya no quiere caminar, porque no tiene, porque le falta marihuana que fumar. No other song or corrido inspires the imagination of the Mexican Revolution of 1910 more so than La Cucaracha. Its composer comes from the aspirations, dreams, and patriotism of many a brave soldier and valiant soldadera. We learned of iconic leaders such as Petra Herrera, Emiliano Zapata, Ricardo Flores Magón, and of course, Doroteo Arango, better known as Francisco Pancho Villa, who himself lived and was assassinated in his car named La Cucaracha. Francisco Villa was greater than life, for most a hero to los de abajo, for others an opportunity to create a bandit image for Mexican and Mexican-American men. Ya murió la cucaracha, ya la llevan a enterrar entre cuatro sopilotes y un ratón de sacristán. El centauro del norte, Francisco Villa, fue asesinado, was assassinated July 20th, 1923.
Quiero cantar el corrido de un amigo de mi tierra. Se llamaba Valentín y fue fusilado y colgado en la sierra.
No me quisiera acordar, fue una mañana de invierno, cuando por su mala suerte cayó Valentín en manos del gobierno. El capitán le pregunta cuál es la gente que manda. Son 800 soldados que tienen sitiada la hacienda de Holanda. Valentín era muy macho y de nada les dio razón. Yo soy de los meros hombres que han comenzado la revolución. Vuela, vuela palomita, porque ya se vino el fin. Estas son las mañanitas de un hombre valiente que fue Valentín.
I have to say this, but Carlos, you've been around for a while, haven't you? Now I know why I like you so much. We now enter our next period, the California period from the 1700s to the 1930s. Lands to the north, la frontera, el norte, Texas, Nuevo México, Baja y el norte, California. Tierra hermosa, los españoles, the Spanish, eager in their attempt to find new lands. Like los indios before them, they too found the beauty of a land that spanned from San Diego to San Francisco. A hardy people, an adventurous stock, bound by a Catholic faith that valued love, sacrifice, and la familia. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, California families, los Californios, built an economy that was the envy of the world. On land and by sea, men and nations abroad traveled the world to meet and conduct business with the men and women who built a society of families that defined an industrious California.
California prior to 1850 was known as Alta California, then part of Mexico. It was described by many as a veritable Garden of Eden, utopian in its existence. To many Americans, California life seemed a perpetual round of feasting, dancing, and visiting back and forth. There were no fences, cattle roamed free, and it was customary, if one was traveling, to be welcomed with gracious hospitality at one of the haciendas, given food, a clean bed, and sent off with a fresh horse and a bag of coins. The Californios seemed to be always celebrating, whether it was a harvest, a wedding, a religious holiday, or just life itself. So we're going to take you back to that time for a moment with this beautiful love song, often played at a California hacienda called Carmen Carmela. And quiero dedicar esta canción a mi querida amiga y segunda madre, Carmen. Gracias por todo lo que has hecho por mí en mi vida. The liver change here first. Well, I'd like to introduce mi esposo and my producer and recording engineer for all my CDs. I want to invite him to play this next song with me. He's a profesor de música y guitarrista bueno. Well, the discovery of gold brought drastic changes to the land. Laws were changed to benefit the new Americans. Suddenly, native Californians were treated like foreigners in their own country. The story of Juanita took place in a little town called Downieville, which is near Grass Valley in Nevada City, north of Auburn. And her story is an important one in our history because it's one of many tragic examples of the cultural tension and the social climate in California at that time. It was not a good time to be Mexican or anyone of color. And I can only imagine how difficult it must have felt to be a Mexican woman at that time in dangerous environments. So this next piece was inspired by her story, a woman who, while defending her honor, stabbed and killed a man, a drunken miner, who intruded on her in her cabin on the 4th of July, 1851. Without much chance of a fair trial or defense, she was arrested, tried, and lynched by a crazed mob and hanged from the bridge in Downieville. So I wrote this piece in her memory to honor her as a woman, a Mexican woman, who had the courage to stand up for herself in a difficult time and defend her honor. Ode to Juanita. invited my ancestors to join us tonight. Hope you don't mind. And I forgot to mention it to this fellow over here. No, you right there. That my great-grandmother is sitting on your lap. And, I was told she really likes men. Anyway, my earliest California ancestors traveled with Juan Bautista de Anza in the first colonization expedition to California from Mexico in 1775. They settled in the beautiful, fertile valley of Napa, and soon the lands were covered with crops, vineyards, and fruit trees, with many herds of cattle grazing freely. Their lands stretched as far as the eye could see from what is now Vacaville to San Francisco. When I was a little girl, I remember hearing stories about my ancestors living in that valley, which is now Lake Berryessa. But the land was lost, and that part of the story was never very clear to me. So when I was older, I decided to do some research to find out what really did happen, and an incredible story unfolded before me. Nothing I had ever learned in any of my history classes. I learned about the struggle of those early native Californians to hold on to their lands and lives against the tide of greed, injustice, and violence. After gold was discovered and California became a state, the United States, or the population, exploded, and California families like mine saw the fields of their elegant haciendas trampled, hordes of newcomers squatted on their lands, putting up fences, killing their cattle and picking the fruit from their orchards, selling it, and using the money to hire lawyers to get their land away from them. Many members of my family lost their lives trying to protect their ranchos, and according to one writer, Frank Viviano, the Berryessas and their kin were reduced to paupers inside of 2 to 3 years in one of the steepest social dives in American history. So I wrote this next song in memory of my grandmother, Maria Veronica Berryessa. And she was known for her big heart and her enchiladas. And keeping with the old Berryessa tradition, one could always get a meal and be assured of a place to stay at her home. So I would like to, actually, they wouldn't let me light a candle, but I have my dad here, grandparents. So I would like to honor her with a song called Veronica and pay tribute to all the California families and Native people who lost their lives, their land, and their honor. So, La Familia.
Does the toast go around?
See how far it goes. think they liked it.
It reminds me of a lecture I gave in one of my classes before. So, yeah. Before we play and perform our last piece for you this evening, we actually wanted to thank each and every one of you here tonight to share your time with us and to give us an opportunity to share what I think at least is very beautiful historical music of being Mexicano in the United States. So thank you for being here. I also want to take a special moment to especially thank el Consul General de México, Pedro Gonzalez. Muchas gracias a ustedes. La staff de su oficina, Patricia Pinzón, I can't see you out there. Patricia, I know you're here somewhere, I feel you. Pleasure to meet with Luis Cano. Thank each and every one of you in your office for your support. Also, Michael Curtis, what an individual. He's a miracle maker. There he is. He's back there in the lobby there in the back. So thank you very much for Michael Curtis. Texting each other here like 2 in the morning, it felt like at times. Jenny Sistang and Julio Muñiz as well, so thank each and every one of you. Also, I'd like to share, I think, a personal story. Actually, it's really a personal memory of mine, and it's a memory that goes back to my childhood. And I remember back then waking up as a young boy and smelling the smells that would come out of the cocina or come out of the kitchen of my mother. And at the same time, I would hear out in the distance my mom singing. And she would be singing to the songs of Lydia Mendoza and also to the songs of Cuco Sanchez. And I value those memories. I cherish those memories, and I have cherished those memories throughout my life. And when I hold back on those thoughts and those memories from once upon a time, it's my opinion that it has helped me to keep balance. It has helped me to remain balanced by having a focal point in my life and to help me live in the United States as a Chicano and to help me live here as a Mexican American. I also think that because of that memory of music and how music helped me bind la cultura y la historia de Mexico with my family and I, it by chance really helped me cross paths with I think 3 wonderful musicians here that I really, really want to thank for welcoming me into their world and into their lives. So un aplauso por favor.
It's been an honor to play for you tonight, and I want to thank you all for letting me share my stories and us sharing these beautiful old songs. Music's a wonderful way for us all to connect, not only with our history, but with beautiful cultures that we might not be so familiar with. And for me, looking into where I come from, exploring my roots and my culture, and honoring that part of myself has not only brought me closer to my ancestors, but has helped me understand a little better who I am. My great aunts were crazy just like me. So I feel I've been able to draw strength and a little wisdom from my ancestors. We can also heal the past and create a positive future for generations to come, but we have to take an active part. And remembering that many rights and advantages we take for granted were handed down to us through efforts of our own ancestors who worked for causes they believed in. And these 2 men, whom I'm honored to know, are beautiful examples of how we make change. They have chosen to live their life in service to others and do make a difference. They continue to work for causes they believe in. Dr. Ortega, his involvement in equal rights movements, helping his community use their voices, being an advocate for his students, guiding them and helping them pursue their dreams. Carlos, a peace activist, his work for social justice, his commitment to drawing attention to our environmental destruction. Working for a cause which you are passionate does leave a legacy for those who follow. So follow your heart and find causes that inspire you. and celebrate life.
Some time back, my neighbor gave me a book that she had bought at an antique bookstore. The title of the book was The History of Mexico Through Its Art. And I was going through the book one day and I thought, well, how would it work okay with music? The history of Mexico through its music. So I contacted my friends Reyes and Cristina, and I asked, well, what do you guys think? Could we do something like that? And we met, and we agreed that we wanted to bring awareness to the beautiful, to the rich Mexican culture that exists. And also to bring in this beautiful old music that is fading slowly, but it's such beautiful music. We're going to conclude the program with a song by a very courageous man by the name of Pedro Gonzalez. He was a singer and a radio announcer in Los Angeles in the early 1930s. And of course, that was the time of the Depression. And jobs were scarce, and the LAPD began profiling Mexican-looking individuals and getting them deported. The problem was that many of these individuals were US-born Mexican Americans. And Pedro had a program in the early morning hours, and he brought out the issue of the deportations and objected to them. He every morning he would talk about the deportations on his program. Finally, one day, the district attorney of Los Angeles summoned him to his office and threatened him that if he didn't stop talking, that there were going to be serious consequences. Pedro didn't stop talking. He continued talking about the deportations. He, on a couple occasions, was arrested on bogus charges and nothing charged. Finally, one day, he was arrested. He was arrested on a charge of having sex with a female under the age of 18. Pedro denied all the accusations and demanded a trial. He went to trial in 1934 and was convicted and spent 6 years in state prison. In 1934, Pedro Gonzalez was, 1940, Pedro Gonzalez was released from San Quentin prison and placed on a train going south so he could be deported to Tijuana. The word got out in Los Angeles that the train carrying Pedro Gonzalez was going to be passing through Los Angeles. When the train arrived, there were hundreds and hundreds of people waiting there to greet him. And shortly, he began singing. And after a few pieces, the people there, the people from the train station said, stop singing. We need the people to leave. And the train can't leave if the people don't leave. So Pedro said, and what are they going to do to me? Are they going to put me in jail? So he sang for the next 4 hours. In Tijuana. Tijuana, he became a very successful radio announcer. The government assigned him to look after the distribution of lands, make sure that the distribution of land to the veterans of the revolution was well done. He also became a strong advocate for the braceros. We'd like to play for you by Pedro Gonzalez, Sonora Querida.